Welcome to a special WTCH presentation. Race for Sheriff 2018, You Decide. The views and opinions expressed on this program today are those of the host and those appearing on the show. They do not necessarily reflect the view and opinions of WTCH Radio. WTCH makes no representation of the accuracy, completeness, or validity of any information on this program. After this presentation, WTCH will make copies available at our website, tchdailynews.com. Enjoy this special programming, Race for Sheriff 2018, You Decide, from WTCH Radio.
Good morning, I'm Doug Rogers. Welcome to our special programming today, Race for Sheriff 2018, You Decide. Our studio guests this morning include Challenger Officer Keith Sorlie, producer Kayla McKenzie, videographer John Kupski, and Chuck Dallas, who will be presenting our candidates with questions.
Well, thank you, Doug. Today we're talking with Challenger Officer Keith Sorlie. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here at WTCH. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, you'll have 25 minutes to answer our main topical questions in the categories of communication, drugs, highway safety, budget, and employment. We'll then open the floor to questions from your opponent, set at a 2-minute limit, and then we'll close with some final comments from yourself for about 1 minute. So our first category, Keith, is communication. How have you or how do you plan on keeping the community informed when it comes to issues that affect their safety, and what information is important for them to know?
Well, in the past, the radio, the television, and more recently social media have all been used to keep the public informed as to what's going on at the sheriff's office. In the event of an emergency, of course, we try to break into to news reports and stuff like that. But as far as communication goes, keeping people informed of stuff isn't always just telling them things. Sometimes it's going out to places and meeting with people and having a conversation with them and saying, this is what we're trying to do, and then listening to them to hear what they think needs to be done.
Sure.
You know, I was out in Burnhamwood the other day talking to some folks out there, and they said, sometimes we don't have the police presence that we'd like to have. And they said, we understand that Shawano County is a big county and there's only so many deputies to go around and that kind of stuff. But we have had instances where we have had traffic accidents, the ambulance is showing up, loaded the patients into the ambulance and left before a deputy's shown up to work the accident.
Wow.
I said, well, that's interesting. I mean, that's something certainly that we would like to know about, as a police agency. How can we serve you better? So then we started to have a discussion about how, does Burnhamwood need a town or a village constable or something like that? And so one of the village residents asked me to gather some information up for him about some different options for increased police presence in Burnhamwood. And I did that, So I think that communication isn't always just telling someone,
Sure.
What we're doing. It's sitting down, meeting with them, and finding out what they need and what we can provide for them.
Yeah. Okay. Second question is, how can we create or continue to create an overall positive relationship between the general public and our deputies?
Well, there's a lot of ways to do that. One way is to be a professional police organization, have open lines of communication, allow people to give you input, on Facebook, on Twitter, on social media. Go out to the village board meetings, to the town board meetings, to the school district meetings. Find out, what's going on, because when they are involved, when they think they have a voice in what's going on at the sheriff's office, they'll have a higher regard for the sheriff's office as well.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've kind of laid a little bit of groundwork for is trying to work in conjunction with a local college to get a police department report card. So what I'd like to do is have some social work or some students who are involved in the sociology department come to the police department, interview deputies at the police or at the sheriff's office, interview jail staff, interview dispatch staff, interview inmates, then go out into the general public and interview the general public so that we can get a feel for, not only how we think we're doing, how the inmates or the people that we're arresting think we're doing,
Yep.
and how the general public thinks we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think if we find the right partner, we can do it without any additional cost to the sheriff's office, and it's something that we can use to build our relationship with the general public.
Sure. Okay, Keith, our next category is drugs. How does Shawano County compare to other counties when it comes to illegal drug dealing and use? And how much of the department's time is spent on drug-related calls?
Well, it's really hard to tell how much time we spend dealing, with drug use. And you can look at the amount of arrests that are made and stuff like that. But when Captain Tuma and I were going around to communities and giving drug presentations, part of his introduction was 80% of all people who are incarcerated were high or intoxicated at the time that they were at the time that they committed the crime. Okay, well, if 80% of the people who are committing crimes are doing it when they're high or intoxicated, that number that you just asked me about is a pretty high number.
Sure. Yep. Okay. What can we do or continue to do to cut down on the distribution of illegal drugs in our community?
I think we have to send a strong message to the people that are distributing drugs in our county that we're not going to put up with it. We need to strictly enforce the drug laws. Recently, we had a incident in the city where we executed a search warrant and we found a guy with 4 ounces of cocaine. Okay, that person was sentenced recently and he didn't receive any prison time.
Oh.
So we're talking about $8,000 worth of cocaine that he was obviously distributing, and he's not going to go to prison for it. Okay, that's sending the wrong message to the people who are distributing drugs.
Yeah.
It sends a message that we're not really tough on drugs here, so come on up and do it.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, and maybe to tie into that just a little bit is our next question. Are our current laws at the county level fair and efficient in handling drug-related crime? Is it set up in a way that is proving success in the long term? And is there anything missing, Keith?
So one of the things that I differ with my opponent on is the marijuana ordinance citation. And when you talk about fair drug laws, this is a prime example of that. So in Shawano County right now, if you possess marijuana, you can be issued a civil ordinance citation for that possession, or you can be arrested criminally and charged with a misdemeanor. Second offense possession of marijuana in the state of Wisconsin is a felony. So if you're convicted a second time, it's a felony. Well, if you got a citation the first time, it doesn't count as a conviction. So the second time you possess marijuana, you could, if you only got a citation the first time, you could get another citation. You could be charged with a misdemeanor. Or if you had been unlucky enough to be charged with a misdemeanor the first time, you could be charged with a felony.
Okay.
So you can run a gamut of misdemeanor, civil ordinance citation, or felony, all for the same offense.
Sure.
That's not fair.
Yeah. Okay. What can the county do better to prevent drug use before it starts? And how can the sheriff's department be a resource in making that happen?
Well, I think we need to go back to getting into the schools, getting into community organizations, and giving drug talks. Okay, when I was here with the sheriff's department, Captain Tuma and another investigator, and I went out and gave drug talks. We, as a matter of fact, one of the Optimist Club Officer of the Year awards that I won was because we were going out and performing that service for the public.
Yeah.
So we need to start doing that again. We need to make sure that our drug laws are being enforced fairly and strictly. And on the other end of things, we need to have something here in Shawano County for those people who are addicted to drugs, so that they can get rid of their addiction. Okay, right now, I had a conversation with a young lady who was a self-described drug addict, and she said, I don't want to be a drug addict. I know it hurts my family that I'm a drug addict, but I don't have any resources here in Shawano County to help me not be a drug addict.
Okay.
So it's all up to me, and I fail. She said, I know I fail. I don't want, she happened to be in jail at the time, and she was hoping that probation was gonna send her to a rehab facility.
Sure. Yep.
You know? So there's three components to this. The first one is education, the second one is strict and fair enforcement,
Yep.
and the third one is to give these people that don't wanna be addicted anymore an option once they reach the point where they decide they don't wanna be addicted anymore.
Sure. Yep. Okay. Our next category is highway safety. There are a number of factors impacting highway and roadway safety. There's drunk driving, drugged driving, distracted driving, speed, road conditions, and high-risk intersections. Is there a good all-in-one approach that is efficient in battling these factors?
Well, I don't know how you could have an all-in-one approach that battles road conditions. You know, that's up to Mother Nature, really. I know from conversations that I've had at town board meetings and with citizens, sometimes the citizens don't feel like they have a say in what the DOT is doing. All right. I was at the Town of Herman town board meeting, and they were talking about the intersection at Highway 29 and County Highway U.
Sure.
Well, they were talking that they knew that there was going to be some meetings coming up about restructuring Highway 29, especially through that area, but they didn't know when the meetings were going to be held. Well, it just so happened that the day before I had been at a different town board meeting, and they'd been talking about when those meetings were going to be held.
Okay.
So I was able to provide them with that information. In reference to that same intersection, I also happened to have a conversation with a lady that lives near that intersection. She said, we hear the crashes. You know, when we hear the crash, we call 911 and tell them, hey, there's a crash at U and 29 again.
Yeah.
She said, it's not the speed that's the problem there. It's the fact that there's a little dip in the road, and the people that are stopped at the stop sign on County Highway U don't see the people on 29 coming.
Yeah.
And she said a lot of times it's people that are coming back from the casino and stuff like that, so they're, you know, either they're tired or they've been drinking or there's other problems. She said you could fix that problem if you just leveled out that little dip. Well, who's talked to that lady other than me? You know what I mean? Why isn't the Department of Transportation getting that information?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. What kind of influence does the Sheriff's Department have when it comes to recommendations on highway safety beyond patrolling? Are there groups or organizations that we can create working relationships with to help out?
Well, I mean, I think you could create a relationship with the State Patrol and let them know that we need some more help on Highway 29, you know. When I was a trooper out in the Black River Falls area, I worked on I-94 and I-90. At that time, it was required that highway was manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
So there was always a trooper on that road. Well, Highway 29 is just as busy as I-90 and I-94 were.
Right.
Why don't we start to talk to our legislators and say, hey, can you get us some help up here? Can you bring another trooper up? Can you make Highway 29 an interstate so that we can get 24-hour coverage on Highway 29 from the State Patrol?
Yep. Yep. Okay. We'll move on to our next category, which is department budget and expenses. So how does Shawano County make sure they're up to date on useful technology, like body cams, scanners, computers, and stay within an already tight budget?
Well, the key there, I think, is to find the technology that's going to work for us and that it is going to have some sustainability to it, okay? There was a deputy that left the Sheriff's Department recently, and when he left, he said, you know, we have video cameras in our cars, and half of the video cameras don't work. Well, if we can't afford to keep the technology that we have up to date and working, what's the sense of buying the technology in the first place?
Yeah.
Right? I know, so the key here, I think, is to find technology that we really need, that would really be useful for us, and to implement that, all right? I told you about the person that I was talking to who was a self-described drug addict. She said that her gateway drug was alcohol. She said what happened to her to become addicted was she She got convicted of drunk driving, and she got sentenced to Huber. And when she was in Huber, they would give her a breath test every day to make sure that she hadn't been drinking. So in order to defeat the test that she was given, she was introduced to Percocets in the jail, okay? Well, how did they get the Percocets into the jail? People were secreting the Percocets in body cavities, okay? Mm-hmm. So maybe the technology that we should be looking at is some kind of x-ray device that keeps people from bringing controlled substances into our jail and, you know, impacting lives of people that we're supposed to be protecting inside the jail.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Our next category is department employment. First question is, how does the Shawano County Sheriff's Department staff salaries stack up to similar counties? And is it enough to attract and retain deputies, correctional officers, and department staff?
Well, one of the key words there is similar counties. So how do you decide what a similar county is? Is a similar county Brown County because it's adjacent to us, or is a similar county a county with the same kind of tax base that we have? I think that the counties that surround us are more attractive because they have the ability to pay higher wages. If you live in Pulaski and your goal in life is to be a corrections officer, and you have the option between going to Brown County where they pay $3 an hour more, or Shawano County where they pay $3 an hour less, why would you go to Shawano County?
Right. Yep.
You know, unless Shawano County is offering you something schedule-wise, you know, morale-wise, something like that, something special that Shawano County has that Brown County doesn't have, that's worth $3 an hour.
Yep.
Because that's the difference right now.
Okay. Okay. When it comes to employment at the jail, how does Shawano County compare to other Wisconsin counties on employee retention and turnover?
So that's kind of a tricky question. And I think it's tricky because for this reason. If I have a house and my window gets broken, I have to replace the window, correct?
Right.
If I have a house and my window gets broken and my neighbor's window gets broken, am I concerned with his window? Not really, okay? If I have a house and my window gets broken 40 times or more than 40 times, do I have to start looking at why my window keeps getting broken? Right?
Yeah.
Regardless of whether my neighbor's window gets broken 40 times or one time, I still have to find out why my window is breaking 40 times. Otherwise, I'm just going to replace the window and replace the window and replace the window. Well, in Shawano County, we've had jail staff leave over 40 times in the past 4 years. Every time a jail staff leaves, it costs Shawano County $10,000. In the past month, I've been told, and I haven't been able to verify this yet, but I've been told that 4 more employees have left or have gave notice that they are leaving the jail.
Okay.
So $40,000 more dollars out the window.
Sure.
That just got broken, that we don't know why it's breaking.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so last question under this category is, what is currently underway to improve upon employee attraction and retention at the county jail, or what needs to happen? Can any improvements be made in scheduling, hours, overtime, wages?
Well, the wages, the sheriff's office doesn't have a whole lot of say over the wages. Of course, the sheriff can go to the county board and say, hey, my employees are getting paid $3 an hour less than they're getting paid at Brown County. We're having a hard time competing with them for qualified employees, but it's still ultimately up to the board as to how much they're gonna pay, you know?
Right.
So then, if the sheriff is concerned about what, you know, retaining employees at the jail, he has to find, or she has to find, other ways to retain them,
Yeah.
okay? When I left the sheriff's office in 2015, I was given a sheet of paper with some questions on it as to, you know, how happy I was, why I was leaving, all that kind of stuff. I was given an envelope to mail back into the Shawano County. Do I know if anybody opened the envelope once I mailed it back in?
Right. Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
You know? So one of the promises that I've made is when people leave the jail or when people leave employment at the sheriff's office, I'm going to sit down with them. I or a member of my administrative staff are going to sit down with them, and we're going to have a discussion. Why are you leaving? You know, if you found a better job, if you became the CEO of Google and you're leaving the jail because you're going to make a lot more money, God bless you. Congratulations. Good luck to you.
Right.
You know, If you're leaving the Shawano County Jail because you're going to go to Brown County for $3 an hour more, I need to know that so that when I go to the board, I can say, look, we lost this person and this person and this person because they're going to different jails to make more money.
Yeah.
You know? Are there different schedules that we could create or implement? I think until we know why they're leaving, it doesn't make any sense to come up with a plan to stop their leaving, right? That's
Yeah.
like having a boat that has a leak in it and you're trying to fix the engine on it.
Right.
It doesn't help us, okay?
Yeah.
It's not addressing the problem, and we're not addressing the problem because we don't know what the problem is, because people aren't having conversations about why people are leaving. And like I said before, regardless of if they're having a problem in Brown County or Dane County or Vilas County with people leaving, we still have to take care of Shawano County,
Sure.
okay?
Yep.
And right now, we're not taking care of the problem, and it's so far, in the past 4 years, cost the residents of Shawano County $450,000 to replace jail staff. That doesn't include dispatch staff, that doesn't include administrative staff, it doesn't include deputy staff. When you include those people, you're talking about well over $500,000
Okay. Wow.
just to hire. It doesn't, you're not even addressing the amount of training that those people have, the amount of experience that those people have. You're simply talking about putting one body in a place where another body was.
Sure. Okay. Good. Well, next we have some questions from your opponent. So we have 4 questions here. The first one for you, Keith, is on July 30th, you questioned whether adding 91 additional charges of possession of child porn to a defendant charged with child enticement was a good use of resources from our detective division. Shouldn't that be decided by our district attorney and the victims in the case?
The point that I was trying to make in this is that the individual in this case is a man who is elderly, who has a large prison sentence already hanging over his head, and we're going to introduce extra charges to put more prison time over his head, okay? I understand that there's victims involved in this, but they are getting some satisfaction out of the point that he's already being charged with something.
Sure.
We have an unsolved murder case in Shawano County. In 2014, a body was found just outside of the city. The body was that of a lady who was missing from the city from 2013. In 2015, Adam Bieber made a interview with the Green Bay Press Gazette. He said, we're close to solving this murder. It was actually a video interview, and if you go on to the Green Bay Press Gazette website, you can view the video if you can find it. That case is still unsolved, okay? How come we're not concerned with the victims from that case? You know, the family of the victim deserves some closure,
Yeah.
right? If we were close in 2015, how come that's not solved?
Right.
There's more victims out there. When I was with the sheriff's office, the sheriff prior to Bieber was keeping track of how many cases were going unprosecuted. At one time, there was 150 unsolved or unprosecuted cases that the sheriff's office had investigated, had sent to the DA's office to charge, okay? Why are we taking the time to charge additional charges on a man that's already facing enough to probably put him away for the rest of his life?
Sure.
When we have victims out there who have charges that aren't being addressed.
Yeah.
Time on that one.
Okay. Next question is, it's been stated that you're against medical marijuana. Can you talk on this?
I am against medical marijuana as far as passing a law to let you smoke a joint to fix your anxiety, okay? And I'm against that because who says how big the joint is? Who says how much marijuana is in the joint, right? What's the desired effect that you're trying to achieve? When I take my high blood pressure pill, the doctor says I'm giving you this milligrams because I want to achieve this effect.
Sure.
Okay?
Yep.
When you get the license to smoke a joint to reduce your anxiety, how much marijuana are you smoking? What's the desired effect of anxiety reduction that we're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay? It's been the experience of the United States that pass medical marijuana laws later pass recreational marijuana laws. I think medical marijuana is a slippery slope. I think that there's chemicals in the marijuana plant that can be extracted that can help people, just like there's chemicals in an opium plant that can be extracted to help people.
Sure.
But I don't think the answer is letting someone smoke a joint to try to achieve the desired medical effect.
Yep.
Because I don't see that we can regulate how they're getting to that desired effect.
Sure. Okay. All right. Next question is, you've mentioned on a regular basis the 8% increase in the sheriff's salary. The COs you have shown a concern for regarding wages receive about a 2% raise annually. That would equal 8% over the previous 4 years. It has been more than 4 years since the sheriff position has seen an increase. Given the lengthy amount of time since that position last received an increase in salary, would it not be safe to say that in order to simply keep up with historical inflation, an 8% increase is at least justified, especially when 76% of the county board deemed it necessary?
Well, that's also a tricky question because originally 76% of the county board didn't deem it necessary. When the raise for the sheriff was proposed to the Public Safety Committee, the county board had proposed a 2% raise for the sheriff's position.
Okay.
The Public Safety Committee then increased the amount of that raise to 3% with a $4,000 bump, they called it. Well, that $4,000 bump makes the raise an 8% raise.
Okay.
Okay? So to say that 76% of the county board approved it, they may have after the fact, but they didn't before the fact.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Secondly, there was a reason that the sheriff didn't get a 2% raise in 2015. There was a reason he didn't get a raise in 2016. There was a reason he didn't get a raise in 2017. We don't know what those reasons are. Okay, so to say now all of a sudden, well, just because he didn't get a raise back then, we're going to give him 8% now, doesn't work. I work for the city police department. The last two raises we received were 1% and 1%. The city's not going to offer us a 6% raise this time when we go to contract negotiations.
Sure.
I can pretty much guarantee that. You know?
Right.
Finally, I'm willing to do the sheriff's job for the 2018 rate. Okay? I would like to give the money back. I don't see how that's a bad thing.
Right. Yep. Okay. Good. Last question is from a listener who would like to hear your position on concealed carry and gun control.
When I was a trooper, there was an old veteran trooper who had a lot of opinions about stuff. And one day I asked him about concealed carry for regular citizens. And he said, the bad guys are going to carry guns regardless of whether there's a law that says they can or not.
Sure.
So you might as well have some good guys out there that are carrying guns too, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not against responsible concealed carry. Here's my problem. Last night we were working, I was working for the city police department. One of the local restaurants called us up and said, hey, can you come up over here? We have a gun laying in our bathroom.
Oh.
So we respond, we recover the gun, take it back to the police department. A couple hours later, a guy shows up. Hey, I'm really embarrassed. And there's nothing against this guy. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't a jerk. You know, he was genuinely upset about this firearm. He said, I lost my gun somewhere, and I think I lost it at this restaurant. Well, it's probably his gun. He was he was someone who had a concealed carry permit.
Yeah.
Was he carrying it responsibly?
Yeah.
You know? Doesn't make him a bad guy, but
Right.
a gun was laying in the bathroom of a restaurant that could have been picked up by anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are we going to do about that?
Yeah.
You know? That's my concern with it.
Sure.
You know, how do you enforce responsibility?
Yep. Yep. Okay. Good. Well, we're at the point of closing statements. So, from the feedback you're receiving so far on your campaign, is there anything in the public perception that you feel is misunderstood or being misconstrued, or what else would you like, Keith, the voters to consider on Election Day?
Well, I've committed to communicating openly and honestly. I've made 7 promises that have appeared in the paper and on our Facebook page. If you want to see the promises and you haven't seen them in the paper, please go to my Facebook page, Keith Sorlie for Sheriff. You can see the promises there, as well as a bunch of other stuff about my views on things. Some people are concerned that I'm a Democrat. Some people are concerned that I'm a write-in candidate. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a write-in candidate. My name will appear on the general ticket. You just can't vote straight ticket Republican or straight ticket Democrat, because if you do that, you won't have a chance to vote for me. So I would appreciate it if you checked our Facebook page out, and if you took the time to vote for individual people on the general ballot. Thanks very much for your time. I'm sorry I have a frog in my throat, but thank you very much for your time. I truly appreciate the time that WTCH has given us, and I thank you, the listeners, for taking the time to listen.
Very good. Thank you, Keith. Best of luck in November.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You've been listening to Race for Sheriff 2018 You Decide here on WTCH.